Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a Rangers Review Europa League special as we look ahead to Thursday's big clash between Rangers and Lyon. It brings me great pleasure to say that we're joined by Tom Abadi, who covers Lyon in great detail. He's a Lyon podcaster, and he's going to give us some insight into what we can expect at Ibrox on Thursday. Tom, how are we doing?
Very well. Very excited for this game, which has obviously got recent history with the Europa League. I guess 2 years ago. I can't even remember how long it's been since we've been in Europe. And actually, funnily enough, it's one of my first European ties. Rangers against Lyon back in, I think it's 2007.
Yeah.
With Benzema playing quite a good game at the time.
Yeah.
With his long career ahead of him. But yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I was there that night at Ibrox and Iran Riot. But I was saying that I was on we do a show in the morning, and I was looking at this fixture last night. And of course, the last two seasons that Rangers have played Lyon, they've ended up going all the way to the final of European competition. So it might be a good omen, perhaps. Who knows? But interestingly, neither club have won against each other at home. But Lyon certainly domestically in Ligue 1. I know they got past Toulouse at the weekend narrowly, but they've not been doing too well in the league, have they?
Not great. Of course, if for Rangers fans who obviously don't follow Lyon on a daily basis, last season sort of started the same way, actually worse, because I think we got our first win by the early December in the league, which, as a Lyon fan is obviously not quite what we expect. We obviously changed chairman and president and owner over the last 18 months. And it didn't start too well, let's put it that way. And we really picked it up under new management from December onwards, getting quite miraculously into the Europa League on the last day with incredible results. And that really brought us back together and sort of felt like there was a real push for something this year, which hasn't happened at all. There's been a lot of things going on the transfer market in the first place, which has been all over the place. Bad dealings is sort of at a more English and UK level. You could think of sort of what's happened at Everton and Nottingham Forest over the last few months, of transfer dealings going sideways and obligations to buy and resale not going great. In the end, we ended up with a really dysfunctional squad and with lots of late arrivals, including Wilfried Zaha and others. So it's not quite clicked and gelled very well at the start of this season. I've had lots of unlucky results. I think we should have won against Marseille last week, for example, and being 11 against 10 for most of the game, and then losing in the last minute. We've picked up 2 wins over the last week, which might mean positive, I guess, but on the pitch it's really quite dreadful. So obviously, if Rangers are going to be putting a lot of intensity and quite good quality on the pitch on Thursday, it could be a real proper matchup. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Is Pierre Sage, what sort of coach is he? Is he under a bit of pressure, Tom?
I don't know if he is. I think he's really adored by the fans since he's moved into management last year. Obviously, he's never been proven at this level and did incredibly well. He's a very humble guy, very inspired by Pep Guardiola, like many other managers, of course. But he was manager at the academy before, and is quite a nice guy. So he was very popular with the fans last year, even though he lost the cup final, which could have gone very differently against PSG. There's a bit of an issue in terms of game management. He has an issue with sort of rotating the squad and bringing on subs before maybe the late stages of the game, which is obviously an issue when you're losing a lot of the games in the final minutes. Let's say that this year it's been a bit chaotic around him. Today, for example, there's been a very public statement from Anthony Lopez, who was our starting goalkeeper for nearly 10 years and has sort of created havoc. Insiders sort of say that's above him let's say that he had to put Anthony Lopez onto the reserves and put Lucas Perry instead, which has not gone down very well with the fans in terms of Anthony Lopez coming out, being a very divisive character. So I think he's doing his best with what he's been offered. He's not always chosen the players, and he's definitely not chosen the way some of the profiles have been managed. So I think he's a good coach, but he's struggling to be a good manager under very intense pressure from up above.
Yeah, because of course there is a lot of egos in that squad, isn't there? A lot of big players. You mentioned Wilfried Zaha. I mean, Lacazette is in there. Benrahma's in there. There's a number of good players Rangers need to be keeping an eye on. How has Zaha got on since he arrived? Has he been performing?
If we put a code instead of him, I don't think that would have changed much. But it's clear that he's out of form. We're giving him a bit of time to get into it because I've followed the Premier League for many years, and obviously he's an incredible player. So was Benrahma in the Premier League for many years. Benrahma has been decent when he arrived, and a lot less this season. Let's just say that we feel like Zaha, obviously arriving on the last day of the transfer window, isn't very implicated in training and is not up to standards, especially seeing as we're probably playing quite a lot of his salary from Galatasaray. So no, he's been dreadful, and even more so against Toulouse this weekend. We see the quality. I think he's not up to standards on the physical level. There's a great pass outside the boots against Olympiacos last week in the Europa League, which shows that he's still a fantastic player, but you just don't know if he's going to show anything this year at all in terms of tracking back and actually running more than 2 miles per game. So we're hoping it's going to be a bit more implicated throughout the season and he's going to progress, but it's not great so far. Let's put it that way.
No offense, I hope he's dreadful on Thursday night as well if he plays. But
I'm sure. I'm sure that's the hope.
Yeah,
I'm not actually sure you'll play, to be honest. Let's see how he played this weekend.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, who should Rangers be wary of? Do you think? Who are the danger men?
I wish to say it was Alex Lacazette, who was fantastic last year, played incredibly well at the Olympics with France this summer, but he's suffered a lot physically with a lot of strain. Obviously played pretty much every game last year. Orban hasn't delivered at all, and any of the substitutes haven't been good at all either. Obviously, Mikatate's come in this year after great Euros. He's not picked up the level he should have, and he might be. This might be his chance to play very well against Rangers. I wish for us, obviously not for you, that he plays very well this weekend. But I actually want to pick out a player who scored the winning goal this weekend, which is Malik Fofana, who's been terrific every time he's come on over the last year or so since he's arrived. Incredibly quick winger, very young and, still very rough diamond, let's put it that way. But he's decisive pretty much every time he plays. So he's one of the key men. And obviously the other star who was nearly kicked out the club this summer is Ryan Shirky, who's sort of a star in the making since, the 1980s. It feels like he's been around for so long that he should be really delivering on the level that is expected of him, which is, pretty much the levels that Lamine Yamal and Gavi have delivered over the years with Barcelona. He's clearly not delivered that much on a regular basis, but since he's renewed his contract and he's come back into the team, which is, I guess, 10 days, if not 2 weeks ago, he's pretty much scored on every game he's played. So I'd say he's pretty much the danger man. He's definitely the one with the most quality on the ball. And if he can play simple and really integrate with the other teammates, he can really be a menace. Yeah.
Good start to the Europa League campaign last week, of course, Tom, defeating Olympiacos by 2-0. How did they perform? Was it 2-0 going on maybe 3 or 4? Was it 2-0 flatter Lyon, perhaps?
I think we played quite well. I've obviously watched every Lyon game since the start of the season, and sometimes you really regret putting yourself through it. I can't say that
I know
Thursday
the
was
feeling.
one of those occasions. We started off pretty well without putting enough intensity. You have to put an asterisk to that 2 years ago, when we were kicked out of the Europa League by West Ham, there was a fan invasion, which means that UEFA banned two of the sides of the stadium, meaning we only had 25,000 people in the stadium instead of 60,000, which really sort of sounded very empty. With,
Yeah.
We saw it with COVID. It doesn't really motivate players to really go the extra mile. So it took a bit of time for both teams to get into it. But after halftime, and knowing what Pierre told to his players, because he was very open about it at halftime with the media, you really felt a difference with a very early goal in the second half, and a much better performance with players, including Malik Fofana, playing to a much better level. So I'd say it flatters us in the sense that over 90 minutes, we probably didn't deserve to score 2 or 3 or 4 goals, knowing that Olympiacos played pretty well in the last 20 minutes. Lucas Perry was decisive on a few occasions. But I think if you take the overall score, we deserved the win. I can't say Olympiacos showed much for the 90 minutes and delivered anything else. And, if I were Rangers, I don't know if you're going to be crossing paths with Olympiacos at some point this year, but I wouldn't be too
But away
worried.
to them. Yeah.
Going away,
Yeah.
that could be a very different experience, because Athens is a quite an experience, red hot, and they've got if they give themselves time. Obviously, they're reigning Conference League champions.
Yeah.
Jose Luis Mendilibar is a fantastic coach. Everywhere he's been pretty good. So maybe in a few weeks' time, it'll be a bit more of a challenge, but it certainly wasn't last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, expectation levels with regards to Lyon, I know they finished 6th in Ligue 1 last season, haven't started so well as we touched on at this moment in time, Tom, but the Europa League, is that a competition that you expect Lyon to go far in?
For my sins, I also follow Manchester United, and I'm kind of hoping that they would come out as clear favourites. Obviously, it's not going so well this year either. It's been a tough 10 years, I have to say. But that aside, I think Lyon should be in the upper bracket. We're obviously, I think, in the first pot based on UEFA coefficients, and I think it wouldn't be a fair statement to say that we're underdogs to aim for the top 8. Not favorites either. I think we're definitely a top 10. It's a bit of a weird way of explaining these things with the new setup and everything. We're sort of saying that we're aiming for a top 10, knowing that the difference between 8 and 10 is very big. But at least we can say that we're not going to be facing a Bayern Munich or Juventus who'll be dropping down for the Champions League. That's I guess a positive. So no, I think that the clear expectation is obviously not to be kicked out in the first round, and definitely to be aiming for top 10, if possible, top 8. I don't think there's many sides based on the second part of our season last year who'd be much better. If you take from January onwards, we were top in the league, ahead of PSG and so on. So that does say a lot about Lyon pedigree. We've got a wide experience in Europe. Obviously, we went to the semi-final of the Champions League 4 years ago during COVID, and the quarter-final in the Europa League last time we were out, with many great experiences in Europe over the last 20 years. So the squad has changed. Not many players have great European experience, apart from maybe Lacazette and Nemanja Matic, obviously with European titles to his name. So no, the clear expectation is that we go through, and hopefully without having to play the playoff round against a very tricky opponent, because being a big fan of the Europa League, I'd say that everyone is a difficult opponent, even if you're going away to Slovenia or Iceland.
Yeah. And just on Lopez, when you're talking about him, I mean, you've been very vocal today, like you say, not best pleased. How do you see that unfolding? What do you think is going to happen there?
I've been a bit of advocate for Lopez over the last 10 years. He's been a fantastic goalkeeper. Was captain for a few years between Lacazette leaving and other players coming back. He's always had a very vocal mouth. Let's put it that way. He's got a very vocal agent as well. He's had issues in the past with some teammates. A player you wouldn't maybe know of in the UK is Marcelo, not obviously the Real Madrid player, but a centre back who's played in Lyon, Bordeaux, and Besiktas. There's a statement that's come back out recently when he had a fight with Lopez. Lopez also had an argument with Marcelo's wife during an altercation when they played Besiktas. I'd say a good 6 or 7 years ago, which says that basically he only cares about himself and how he's viewed with the Lyon fans. He obviously was an ultra and part of the supporters group as a kid, and obviously growing up as a Lyon fan, he's got tremendous respect from the Lyon fans. But that's sort of withered over the last few years. His performances have been really in and out, depending on seasons. Obviously, that the club has respected by bringing in second level substitutes who never really were integrated. But in January, Lucas Perry came in from Botafogo, which is part of the Eagle Football Group, which we're part of, and that creates a real competition. Perry played in the Coupe de France, a national cup, and it was tremendous. In his first game, he brought out a lot of saves. Second game, he saved 3 penalties in a shootout, which brought us to the semi-finals. And he's a very different style of goalkeeper. He's very good with his feet. He's at least a good 10 centimeters taller than Anthony Lopez, which obviously means he's a lot wider and takes a lot more space in the goal. Unfortunately, was at fault on at least one, if not 2 of the goals against PSG in the final, which really brought back an argument over the summer. Unfortunately for Lopez, he was put in the loft, as we call them in France, which means that he was sort of told that he should find another club over the summer, which he did not. He didn't want to leave. He's got, I think, at least the top 3, if not the biggest salary at the club, which is, even at Lyon level is pretty hefty. And, came out today saying that his position as the club is what they gave him, which is none. He was not apparently told that he'd be a substitute, let alone a reserve, which everyone knew he would be by the end of last season, which is, I think, just poor communication from him ahead of a big week for us. He's sort of firstly shooting himself in the foot on the day of his birthday, which is fantastic timing. So the club statement today for his birthday was minimal. Let's put it that way. It was happy birthday, Anthony Lopez. For a guy who's played for over 15 years at the club, we could have expected, a little compilation of his greatest saves, but no, we did the stricter minimum to avoid any communication like Yaya Toure a few years ago. So I think he might have had the birthday cake, but it might have come from Tesco rather than a big patisserie in France. So no, it's really poor from him. I understand the position that he's in, but clearly he's 33 or if not 34, well, 34 today. Lucas Perry is the future of the club, is a fantastic goalkeeper, and it doesn't surprise us that he's been replaced. Maybe there was a chance for him to play a bit more, maybe even in the Cup or in the Europa League, but now that Lyon is really aiming to make a position and a statement in Europe, I completely understand that. Firstly, Pierre, especially the management above, have forced him to play Lucas Perry every game. So it's a tricky position for us to be in.
Yeah. Finally, diverting slightly away from Lyon, but a question came in here. Derek, can you get your opinion on Philippe Clement's time in France? Of course, when he was at AS Monaco, didn't go quite so well from at the end of not last season, but the season prior to that. Tom, how did he get on? Can you remember how does his sort of spell unfold there?
Who's spell? Sorry, I didn't see the
Philippe Clement, the Rangers manager.
Philippe Clement.
Monaco.
He was widely respected actually when he was managing in France. I think there was a bit of a no-nonsense approach to the media and his players, which I think for some young players worked really well. I think Akliouche, for example, really progressed and it's become a really important player for Monaco now. Score against Barcelona in the Champions League 2 weeks ago. And a lot of the young players in that squad really progressed. The exit was a bit of a surprise, actually, because he obviously there was a bit of a change of management above at Monaco. There was a sale from the Russians who were changing over in terms of the chairman. I think the sporting director moved out as well, moving to Chelsea, I think, from memory, which means that it was a bit chaotic everywhere around the club, and it just meant that the new management were like, well, we're going to start fresh, take Adi Hütter, who's got a lot of experience, and I think at that point was pretty much reigning European champion with Frankfurt. And I think he's a fantastic manager and is definitely a bit more experienced than Van Bronckhorst, which we saw last time Lyon played Rangers, who I don't think is doing very well in Turkey at the moment either.
At the Besiktas,
yeah. So no, I've got a lot of respect for Paul Clement, and even in his time in Belgium, I think was he head of Club Bruges, I think at the time.
Bruges
again with a young squad. Yeah. So no, I think he's a great manager, and I can't say I've seen many of the results of Rangers at the moment, but I've understood that the 2-horse race does not include Rangers at the moment at the head of the athletic roundup. Reminded me this morning that it's Celtic and Aberdeen. I don't know if he's really off the pace or if it's always close at the start of the season.
Yeah, any Rangers manager that can't beat Celtic is in trouble, so he has to get that monkey off his back.
I get that. If Pierre does not beat Saint-Etienne in a few weeks, he's going to be in deep trouble as well. Not that the American manager would understand that, higher up above.
Yeah. Tom, before you go, of course, you're part of an English-speaking podcast covering Lyon. If people want to find out more about that and learn more about the club, where can they find you?
It's the Football English podcast. It's been a bit on and off over the last few months. I think it's, as any football fan would understand, it's a bit difficult to talk about your club every week when you're bottom of the league, especially when you're Olympique Lyonnais. Obviously, I completely understand that small yo-yo clubs are struggling financially and struggling with, staying up. But as a Lyon, I'm sure when Rangers went down 4 divisions for financial reasons, it was difficult for everyone to stay put. So for us to speak every week about defeats, which looked the same every week, was a bit difficult. But we're hoping that at some point this season, we'll rekindle the love for Lyon and restart the podcast. But between myself, Liam, who's based in the UK, and 2 of our other hosts based in the US, there's some great people to follow on social media if you want to follow Lyon, and hopefully it brings a great game this week.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a great spectacle at Ibrox. Very much looking forward to it. It's going to Ibrox under the lights on a European night is always special, so I'm sure we'll get a good game, and hopefully Rangers come out on top for a change.
It does feel weird to not host you afterwards, but I guess we'll use
about that because I've been once. There was a game Euro 2016. I went to a game. I think it was Romania, Albania. I think it was.
Good game. France group.
Yeah, fantastic stadium, great atmosphere in there, and of course, I think it was a draw last time we were out there. One each, I think, was it, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. So, we won in Ibrox, I think.
Yeah.
But it was a very different team. It was Bruno Guimaraes and Paqueta holding the line at the time, which feels like a decade ago now.
Yeah. Times have certainly changed, but very much looking forward to the game. Tom, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Welcome.
There you go, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed that. A little bit of insight into Rangers Europa League opponents. And big thanks to Tom, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.